8:38 back on the Big Boy Radio Show. You're listening to Florida Sports Talk, powered by NBC Sports. You're listening live online all the time. FloridaSportsTalk.fm is the website. Adam Reardon, Chris Doring with you on this Thursday morning. Hey, happy kickoff to you, Chris. By the way, we're going to coin that phrase. It's not Merry Christmas.
Shirts and stuff like that, don't we? Trademark it.
Too late.
Somebody already got us.
But let's wish our good friend Danny Money of CanesInSight.com a happy kickoff. Happy kickoff to you, Danny Money of CanesInSight.com, as we celebrate the college football season kicking off tonight as North Carolina and South Carolina get after it, amongst other games as well. But
Ole Miss and Vandy, too. Don't forget about that.
What an you see what I deal with here, right, Danny? SEC homerism at its finest. SEC, Vanderbilt, Ole Miss. Come on now. Danny, good morning. How are you, my friend?
Doing great. This is kind of like Christmas Eve. You get it with your family, watch a little football on. You got maybe exchange the little presents, CD here and there. Then the big present comes tomorrow for Canes fans. So really excited.
Yeah, Canes fans don't have to wait an extra day. They get that on Friday night. They're taking on FAU. Before we talk about on the field type stuff, how about the off the field stuff? Howard Schnellenberger, the honorary captain for both teams, but I actually read where, I guess in some of his comments, it looks like he's pulling for FAU to win the game. So that's my school. Do fans of the University of Miami take too kindly to him being a guest there at Sun Life Stadium, but then saying, "Hey, I'm pulling for FAU," or is that sort of overblown?
They did have a pretty negative reaction to that, which I don't really understand. I mean, Schellenberger's still involved with FAU. He's kind of like a consultant and elder statesman there, so he's still affiliated with FAU. I mean, what do you expect him to say? If it was a more competitive game, if it was like a US or UN versus Florida type game, I'd understand a little bit of the backlash. But everybody knows that this is not expected to be a hugely competitive game. So I didn't understand the anger, but yeah, there was some anger there, and it surprised me.
Let's talk about the fact that they are honoring the 1983 national championship team this weekend, and all the history that Miami has, kind of Al Golden embracing that history. But to me also, there's the good swagger, some of the confidence and stuff that those early Miami teams had and the programs exhibited on through the next couple decades. And then there's some of the bad stuff that kind of went along with that, the personal fouls, the undisciplined penalties and stuff like that. How Al Golden to me seems so buttoned up and such a strict, organized, by-the-book guy. How does he embrace that history while at the same time not allowing things to slip back into some of those undisciplined ways that those teams had?
Al Golden, he's not square. He's from New Jersey. That's why he's fit in really well with Miami. We've had athletic directors, from the Midwest who really just didn't get the culture down here. Coach Golden gets the culture down here. He understands. He's playing loud rap music during the practices. He's not real strict in that regard. He's normal. Now, as far as discipline and penalties, of course, he's like any other football coach. He's just like Jimmy Johnson was. He wants the team to be disciplined on the field, disciplined in the weight room, disciplined on the practice field. But he's not the type of guy that's going to really, get on you for dancing. As long as you're doing the right things, you're not hurting your team, and you're being disciplined off the field. Which Miami, even during that era, always was very disciplined in their work ethic and their habits. Which is why when they went on to the next level, they took to it so quickly because they had those work habits ingrained from the University of Miami. So I don't think those two things are mutually exclusive, and I think Coach Golden really understands what the University of Miami is all about, that combination of work ethic with swagger, with natural talent. So I think he really does get it in that regard. So, I think he'd be very happy if Miami was blowing teams out and dancing on their way to the end zone.
Danny Money, CanesInsight.com, our guest here on the Big Boy Radio Show talking Miami Hurricane football. Though tomorrow night's game not expected to be a very competitive one for Canes fans, for the Canes coaching staff. Now that you're playing against somebody else, it's not just practice, fall ball and all that type of stuff. What is it that the team, the coaching staff and the fans should be looking for in this game against FAU? Is there one thing in particular that you say, you know what, if it looks good here or if it doesn't look good here, it can either be good and or bad for the rest of the season?
The first thing, the coaches would never say it publicly, is just staying healthy. because, obviously the big game is next week against University of Florida. Miami's had great luck with injuries during camp. Florida hasn't. So you're kind of knocking on every piece of wood you can find that Miami will stay healthy through FAU and then go into Florida at full strength. So that's really the first concern for Miami fans. As far as on the field, you want to see how the defensive line plays. In particular, I'll be looking to the pass rush. It was a horrible pass rush last year. Really lacked talent, lacked explosiveness. And there's been a lot of new personnel added in that regard. You had Al-Qadim Muhammad, who's only a true freshman, but really showed well in camp. Ufama Kamalu, who's another guy who performed very well, junior college guy who's going to be a sophomore. So a young guy, but a guy who's going to contribute this year. Alex Figueroa, who's a Sam linebacker that also rushed the passer. You want to see how these guys perform in the pass rush. And I forgot to mention David Gilbert, who started up in Wisconsin and is coming to Miami as a fifth-year senior. So from an on-field perspective, I want to see how the pass rush looks compared to last year because that was a huge flaw in the team, and that's going to be a major factor against University of Florida.
You keep mentioning the University of Florida, and I think everybody's well aware that that's the game that's on the schedule next. But I was shocked to see Miami as a 32-point favorite over FAU, and I guess maybe that speaks to the lack of talent that they have in Boca right now. But in respect to this being the first game of the season, maybe not wanting to show an awful lot, and certainly a team that's still trying to put it all together on the defensive side, is there a challenge at all? Is there anything that you can point to with FAU and what they have in any of the three phases that may present a challenge for the University of Miami?
Well, Miami had one of the worst defenses in the country last year, so that alone makes any kind of big blowout prediction a little sketchy and not a sure thing. The real issue with FAU is that there's just so much uncertainty. The quarterback position isn't settled. They really have no true identity. And if you're an under-talented team with a true identity that knows what it's going to do, you could scare some teams or at least make it competitive early. FAU's not like that. They're going to be very disorganized. They're facing a Miami team at home with a purpose, a lot of pent-up frustration, really wants to show what they can do. So I just don't think FAU is at the point to really give Miami a scare just because they don't have their own house in order. Their starting quarterback just got moved to wide receiver, so that tells you just what's going on at that position. There's probably going to be two quarterbacks same time. It's just going to be kind of a mess, and when you're a less talented team, you can't afford to have that much uncertainty, especially on the road.
Danny Money, CanesInsight.com, our guest here on the Big Boy Radio Show. Danny, obviously the big news in college football today, stemming from yesterday's press conference and news that came out, Johnny Manziel suspended for a half a game. That got over pretty quickly as far as the NCAA is concerned. How about folks in Miami? A little bit frustrated that their investigation continues on as they continue to wait and wait and wait and wait as we get close to the season where the Johnny Manziel situation was pretty much open and shut in a couple of months here.
Frustrated would be an understatement. And how about the NCAA's own investigation of themselves when they were trying to determine their own wrongdoing in the Miami case? That wrapped up pretty quickly as well. Mm-hmm. So Miami fans are extremely frustrated, but at this point it is what it is. I don't think the players are thinking about it, which is the most important thing. I really think the players are focused on themselves, on their team, on beating FAU and then beating Florida. So I don't think it's a distraction to the players. It's somewhat of a distraction to recruits, but this isn't really prime recruiting season, so the delay isn't hurting the team very much in that regard. So really, it's just really frustrating to the fans, and it's got to be frustrating to the coaches. But as far as, the effect on the team or anything like that, I don't think it's a big deal. But obviously, you see just how inconsistent the NCAA is in everything that they do. To suspend a kid for one half, I don't care. I'm glad to see Johnny Manziel play as a fan of football, but it makes you wonder how intelligent the NCAA is for imposing a penalty that really is not going to make them look good no matter which way you interpret it.
I'm not going to ask you to make a prediction here because I think we all think Miami's going to win this football game, but I want you to give me one guy on each side of the ball that maybe has a breakout performance, a guy that's been off the radar that maybe we could expect to have a big year and shows that coming out party on Friday night.
On offense, you have a ton of receivers that can really play. Herb Waters kind of broke out a little toward the end of last year, so I won't mention him. But Stacey Coley, he's been the talk of camp. Arguably the most talented receiver to come out of South Florida a long time, including Amari Cooper. A lot of people thought that Coley was the best receiver in South Florida when he was a sophomore, and Amari Cooper was a rising junior. So, he's been hyped for a while. It's really it's really going to be fun to see him in action with Stephen Morris at quarterback. Now on defense, I really like Tyrese McCord to have sort of a breakout game. He's really a pass rusher from Tampa, kind of a tweener between linebacker and defensive end. He'll go back and forth. Really, pass rushing is his thing. He's bulked up, had a really good camp. And against a team like FAU that's just kind of jumbled up now with their passing game, I could see Tyrese McCord getting, 1-2 sacks and really causing some problems with his speed.
Danny Money, CanesInsight.com, the best in the business, talking Miami Hurricane football. Man, we look forward to tomorrow night as the Cane season kicks off there down in Miami against FAU. Appreciate your time, as always, my friend. Enjoy the game, and we'll catch up with you next week as we get ready for a big one on September 7th.
Take care, guys. Enjoy the games.
We certainly will. Danny Money, CanesInsight.com. Coming up on the other side of the break, we'll wrap up this edition of the Big Boy Radio Show. You're listening to Florida Sports Talk.